Tax season is coming up, everybody. It ain't sexy, but it's necessary. And for years, I have been filing with BrassTaxes.com. Yep, they offer tax help for freelancers, artists, and as their website calls it, other nice people. The sooner you schedule your first appointment, the cheaper it is to file with them. So if you don't feel like you've been getting your money's worth out of quote-unquote free tax applications, head on over to BrassTaxes.com and schedule a consultation today. Let them know Billy Presida sent you. I'll get a little bit on the back end. BrassTaxes.com. The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by Alt Playground. APG is more than just a place to find couples to swap with. Alt Playground is a lifestyle community for all non-monogamous and sexually adventurous people to connect and share. And you know I started a profile. Join me over at altplayground.net. That's altplayground.net. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
It was not a very sexy week for all the GameStop Rocketeers, AMC apes, and BlackBerry bag holders. Good luck jerking off with those diamond hands, everybody. This is Billy Presida, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. Oh, it was so tough with my AMC and with my GameStop. Oh, gosh. However, one positive thing that came out of the whole GameStop phenomenon for me personally was that me and my father finally have like this third party topic that we can discuss for more than like 2 minutes and no one fights. It's incredible. He called me like, I think it was like Monday or Sunday. And he's like, yeah, can you like explain what a call option is? And I was like, I would love to. I would also like a little bit more emotional depth to our conversations at some point, but like this is such a great start, so great. I'll explain Reddit to you. So that's been fun. This week on the show, everybody, I have got on erotic author Jane Boon. She's got a book out called Edge Play, and I'm looking forward to sharing her story with y'all in a little bit. But first, who's on Clubhouse? You on Clubhouse? Are you on Clubhouse? Are you on Clubhouse? Who's on Clubhouse? I told y'all last week I'm on there. You can follow me at the Billy Presida. And I've just been I've spent the last few days in this sex worker Clubhouse room. Mostly people with OnlyFans talking about OnlyFans and stuff, but general sex worker Clubhouse room. And it has been so fucking fun to just like forget the hoe part of it for a moment. Just like being in an audio group. It's basically an audio group chat, right? It's you enter a room and it's like we're all on a group call. And it feels like I'm hanging out with people again. It feels so social. It is so goddamn fun. I make them all laugh at some point. I get tapped into that feeling like when I used to be on a stage in front of people. Oh, and I've been musing the last couple of days on my existence in this particular room. Cause, I have the face that I have. I have the intersecting identities that I've got. A friend of mine on Clubhouse, I got a notification that they were in a room like that, and I thought I'd go in and sit. And that sex worker Clubhouse room has been like an exercise for me in being hyper aware of my place in a given space, given the identities of the people leading the space and mine, right? You can sometimes see this on like a social justice Twitter where you read about frustrations with white people who enter POC spaces or straight people entering queer spaces, which we've talked about that part, when straight people go to a gay bar or lesbian bar and how they interact with and respect or don't respect the space, right? So similarly, I've just been thinking about like how I'm interacting in there, how much I'm talking, how much I'm not talking, because I got no filter. I got an opinion on everything. I love to just chat. I'm not an expert. Yeah, I got an OnlyFans, but I'm not an expert on it. I do belong in the space, though, technically. Point is, it's like I've been really having to think about like when I'm choosing to be silent versus when I'm going to speak and like why I'm going to speak and like thinking about like, am I taking up too much space in a given space, which is an exercise for me personally that I can hopefully then take outside of there, which I kind of already do. I do that on Twitter. You know, it's a lot of like, oh, do I need to reply to this? Why am I replying to this? How little does this person want me to reply to this? That type of stuff. So that's been like really cool. And like I said earlier, like just it's nice to fucking be hanging out with some people. I spent 9 hours in that clubhouse room on Sunday, just like hanging around, doing other stuff and talking. So shout out to Clubhouse. Shout out to the people of that group. That's been and thanks if any are listening to, you know, for accepting me in your space. But then at other times I create my own space where I can do whatever the fuck I want, like Truth or Dare on Saturday night. Oh, the fan whores gathered. My Patreon fan whores gathered last Saturday, and we played some epic Truth or Dare. I normally budget like an hour and a half for these man whore munches, but this thing went on for like 4 hours, and then I passed the fuck out. Allegedly, more people went into the Discord server, and they carried the game on in the voice channel on there. So Saturday night was a blast. If you missed it, that is your fault. But of course I got like incredibly sloshed. And I had no idea that I was that drunk. Apparently everyone else did, because the next day I was in the peep show and we were chatting in there, and you know, someone made reference to that I was really drunk, and I was like, "Oh, what? You could tell?" Makes me very grateful for the community that has been building around this podcast, and I hope you'll be a part of it, just like this person who's getting their fan whore appreciation moment. Yeah, slipping it in. Shout out to River Chick. Ooh, River Chick, a swinging MILF from Utah. Welcome to the club, lady. River Chick and many others have access to various fan whore community spaces, bonus episodes, and behind the scenes content. And you can be a part of it. And you know what? Being part of the community also gives you the little satisfaction of knowing that you are supporting an independent content creator such as yours truly. Membership begins at just $2, and you can join up today at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. And, you know, a shout out to all of Fan Whore Nation for keeping a roof over my head, the Wi-Fi on, and condoms on my cock. Love you all dearly. And now for this week's guest, Jane Boon. Jane is an author. She has a new book out called Edge Play. So let's go find out how Jane went from an adorably sheltered engineering student to helping and assisting a dominatrix friend of hers to writing her first erotic novel. The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by altplayground.net, the place to go for your next non-monogamous adventure. Ooh, yeah, non-monogamy. Yeah, whether you're into swinging, poly, non-monogamy, you know, solo sluttery, or the occasional threesome with your partner, APG is the place for you. Now, some people might be thinking, well, you know, what has that site got that the others don't? Well, APG's got everything that the other sites have. It's what they don't have that sets them apart. APG doesn't have all the fake profiles that other sites have. They got real people, and it's real people having real fun. Lots of fun. APG is the best kept secret on the interweb, and they like it that way. You know, your favorite local bar, it's really hot, it's really popping, and no one really knows about it. And that's kind of the great thing, right? As soon as it makes some sort of like top whatever list in Time Out New York, well, now your local bar is fucked up with a bunch of random tourists and shitty dudes from NYU. APG likes a little bit of privacy when they're pulling it all out on the big wall. What's the big wall? Oh, well, you better go find out and join today at altplayground.net. By now, many of you know that we are big time fans of hotmovies.com over here at the Man Whore Podcast. Yup. We love brands that are supporting this show. And we also love sites that give you an ethical and affordable way to hashtag pay for some of your porns. Your puns, right? And now they've got an even more convenient way for you to access movies from all your favorite porn studios, starring all your favorite porn stars, featuring all your favorite porn categories, okay? Hot Movie Select is their new monthly subscription model. You can gain access to over 30,000 movies. That's over 160,000 clips, and you can watch them over and over again till your heart and cock is content. all for the low monthly price of $24.95. Plus, if that's not enough, you still got access to the regular Hot Movie site, the pay-per-minute model, where you can gain access to hundreds of thousands of more movies. It's insane that you do not have an account over there. So head on over to hotmovies.com today. Use promo code MANWHORE. You'll get 20 free minutes on top of any package you sign up for. Hotmovies.com, promo code MANWHORE. Let's get to the show.
Well, I look like an upstanding member of society. You know, I have a PhD in engineering. I have a husband who has a serious job. So I'll give you a little background. So I was a very serious student as a kid and through college. I pursued engineering and I got great grades because I had a vision. I was going to go to a great grad school. I was going to get a big job. I was going to do big things. And so I really applied myself when I was in school. I worked really hard as an undergrad. I got a fellowship to MIT for my master's degree. And when I graduated, I dawned on me that I had been fun deprived for like basically my entire adult life. And I went a little bonkers.
And this is how old are you when you're done?
I guess I was 25, 26 when I finished my master's.
Okay. And you were like, I didn't do anything. Did you not date? Did you not?
I dated, of course, but I was very focused on schoolwork and the task in front of me, which was to satisfy this ambition to get a great job, get a great degree, and I figured everything would sort of fall into place after that. So is this story helpful for your thing, or should I kind of re-engage with it?
You're great. Oh, we're rolling. I figure out when I'm going to introduce you. I could do it right now. I can say I'm here right now with first-time novelist Jane Boon, author of the new book Edge Play.
Hi, Billy.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. I was really intrigued by the depth of your curiosity about sex and sexuality, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for reaching out. I'm very curious about you. What was this dating like in college?
There was very little fucking. Let me tell you, I was a virgin until I was in my sophomore year in college, and even then, it was very cursory. I didn't want a boy to interfere with my plans, and so. I stayed on track.
Was that something that you were like warned about, like
yes.
by parents, or what was?
Yes.
Where'd that come from?
I think it came from my parents, certainly, but also a lot of it was internal. I was just driven, and guys. I saw a lot of my girlfriends in college. I went to an engineering school in the Midwest, and a lot of them got married like to classmates. And I looked at my classmates and I thought, no fucking way. So quite frankly, it wasn't that hard to like acquire the focus necessary. The dudes just weren't that enticing. But it meant that, while everybody else was, sort of screwing around, getting drunk at fraternity parties, I was working on calculus. And so that kind of discipline stayed with me through MIT, where I got my master's degree. And then when I finished, I was playing around with the internet. This was the early 90s. And I happened upon a room called Stocks and Bonds. And I know, I just had an instinct. It didn't have anything to do with securities, that it was nothing to do with.
It didn't?
It didn't. It was S&M.
Oh.
Yeah. And
we learn new terms every day. Stocks and bonds. What does stocks and bonds mean?
Well, a stock is where you would put a prisoner, right? It's like a traditional thing.
Like the thing with the hole with the head and the two arms, like from the movies?
And
a
lot of well-equipped dungeons have something like that.
Is that the standard for a well-equipped dungeon? Like if you don't have a stock, then you know, what are you doing?
You're going to have some sort of standing apparatus if you want to be the proprietor or proprietress of an excellent dungeon. There's going to be something like, it could be a cross. There's some that
Well, yeah, I think we're familiar with the St. Andrew's
Yes.
cross. I totally forgot that the stock and brocade thing, I forgot that like you could use it. Really, most medieval torture, if you take the actual torture out, if you take the possibility of death out of the equation, most of it is just BDSM furniture.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's one of the things that I discuss in my novel. It's like the transition from torture to fun. And there's like a trajectory where all of these almost medieval implements get repurposed, for a recreation. I mean, we're talking.
I wonder if like one person in history who like was put to death with one of these things like kind of came right before. I'd be like, this does feel really good. Dead. I just wonder. I don't know.
And we will never know, but it's a provocative thing. And I mean, I think that fantasy animates a lot of people because let's face it, if you're doing kink, some of the activities border on the dangerous. I mean, especially if you're doing like...
They're very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. And you're trusting the person opposite you to be competent. I'm assuming, from the perspective of bottom. But like if you think about breath play, I mean, I know that's something that a very serious and heavy practitioner will do. And that can end badly. When I was living in Boston, for instance, there was a pretty famous case of a dominatrix who had a client expire on her. He had like a heart attack, and then she was left with the question what to do with the body, and she panicked, and it was in the headlines.
What'd she do?
She called her boyfriend, and they dismembered him. And then they disposed.
I bet you they got her for the dismemberment. And did they let it be an accident?
So they never found the pieces. She was very good at getting rid of the pieces. They threw the book at her. She went to trial. But if memory serves correct.
Wait, but then how'd they catch her if they never found the pieces?
It was known that he had gone there. The guy disappeared. And so they retraced his steps and, figured out that he had visited her. But I'm almost positive that she got off because they couldn't find the evidence. But they made, the going to court.
You chopped up his body. What body, officer? I see none here.
There's nothing to see.
We learn that from every mob movie. If there's no body, it's kind of hard to prosecute.
Exactly.
But
so bad things can happen.
Absolutely. So again, yeah, always be, always know what you're doing or be with someone who does. But you're done with your PhD and you are like, fuck, I gotta like get into some stuff. And then you find this you said chat room, an AOL chat room?
An AOL chat room. And I was living in
ASL
Boston.
days.
I know, you're paid by the minute too. It was quite awful for somebody
Yeah, you got
out.
the CD-ROM in the mail with like, here's 500 free minutes.
So primitive.
Imagine what a TikTok kid would like would think if they realized like, wait, internet wasn't just unlimited. You had to
Their parents would have a hellacious credit card bill for all that TikToking if it were still that way. So I realized pretty quickly that some of the people in the room were my neighbors because I was living in Boston at the time. And there were a lot of people playing around with this early internet among the community of nerds in Boston. So like it turned out that just around the corner from me, from where I was living, was like an experienced master. And that was where I got my first spanking. I mean, it was just this.
You hooked up with a master from the AOL chat room?
Well, we had dinner first. I wanted to make sure, he wasn't a sociopath. But my big thing is novelty. I love experiencing new things, trying out things. I didn't really know what I'd like until I tried it, right? I mean, how do you know what you like until you've tried it, right?
That many a gay man has tried to convince me with that line of logic.
And maybe sooner or later, one will be persuasive.
So you were like, I'm gonna just try some stuff out. You hook up with this master from the AOL chat room. How was the first spanking? How was that?
It was eye-opening. I had no idea that this stuff could be erotic, and yet there it was. I mean, he was really good. I was so lucky that I got somebody competent, and like not psychotic and cool and, kind of willing to, be playful and open with somebody who was really clueless. And what I learned, though, is when you're, a cute and curious 25-year-old, the doors to the kingdom open wide for you. Everybody.
Yeah. Then when you turn 26, they're like, you're too old.
No,
Get out.
You still got a little runway. But it was thrilling to be invited into these secret rooms, to do things I'd only read about and to see things I'd only imagined or hadn't even imagined. I mean, let's be serious. I'd never conceived of a branding before until I saw one. And
did you get a branding?
No. I'm a big baby. But I helped.
Okay.
So,
wait, did the one master start bringing you to these other places, or were you discovering more people online to connect with to go to these places?
I was discovering people online to go with these places, and then the most sort of pivotal person that I encountered was a woman who turned out to be a professional dominatrix. And
well, before we get to your friend, because I know that she plays like a pivotal role in you getting into writing the book, but let's back up, because I don't often get to chat with people who, were on the internet in the early 20s, seeking sexual funds. So it's I'm not going to talk to my mom about it.
I thought
I
thought I was going on there for stock tips. I didn't expect to hit the pervy stuff.
Were you separately online dating or dating without the online portion? I'm just trying to get an idea of what's going on so I know what I want to ask.
I was dating, but I really didn't think that this AOL thing would amount to anything. It was just a diversion to, what is the internet? How can I use this? It looks like it could be the future, but who knows, right?
Right. So you were you were going on online dates from the AOL chat rooms?
Yeah, I did that. I mean, at one point in time, I had a personal ad in Boston Magazine. I mean, I was trying different things.
What was writing a personals ad like? Those are just extinct. What was it? Can you tell listeners who have a TikTok but not a savings account, what was putting up a personals ad in a newspaper like? Tell us about all of that. Oh my goodness, because we have no idea.
It felt a little desperate, I will admit. It felt a little pathetic. But I'm a pragmatist. I'm like, whatever works, I'm just going to try it. If it fails, so what? So you have to write it, and you would pay by the word. So it had to be very succinct because I didn't have a lot of money, and I forget what the gist of it was. I wish I remembered what I said, but it was.
I heard that there were I've read that there were like a lot of lingo you would use because you had minimal space.
Yeah, like a lot of abbreviations.
Buzzwords.
Well, I mean, single white male, SWM. I mean, that's straight from personal ads. And it went into voicemail boxes.
Those, we had a guest a couple weeks back. He, King Noir, he talked about like these voice chat lines, which are basically Clubhouse, but like with a landline, where it's a group phone call, right? So, well, tell us about so you would leave voicemail messages for some person to hear.
Exactly. So I put out the ad, so they replied to my ad, and I think they may have even had to pay to leave the message. I don't recall. And so like I had my notepad, and I write pretty well, so I got a lot of queries, and then I sort of went through them and like kind of prioritized, like, okay, this one's an A, this one's a C, and figured out.
How much did their voice have to do with it?
Had a lot.
How much did you like do it based? Yeah, because you're like, I can't.
I'm a bit of a snob. I want somebody who can articulate and who sounds intelligent. So maybe they're just faking it, but that's enough for a phone call. And then I spent a lot of time on the phone talking to these dudes to see if they were, compatible or interesting.
Mm-hmm. And no FaceTime either. So you still don't even really know what they look like till you decide to kind of meet,
Oh my goodness. And yeah, so that proved to be an issue once. So I'm talking to this guy, and he's fantastic. He's articulate. He's educated. He was an MD, a psychiatrist, which appealed to the snob in me. And he's like, I just want to warn you, I'm not tall. And I was like, what does that mean? Because I'm 5'8", so I'm pretty tall. And he's like, I'm 5'2". Is that a problem? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never dated anybody who's not my height. So we have brunch, and I will say this, he must have had a very long torso, because during the lunch, it was normal. I mean, I was not aware of his height, but then I couldn't tell. But then we got out on the curb, and I found myself contorting to kind of lower my body to get to his level. Like my legs were splayed, and I had like a crunched neck, and we were having the best conversation, but my body was saying, this isn't going to work.
No short kings for you?
No short kings for me. I need a tall man.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So anyways.
And so you're playing around because you're on the AOL chat rooms, you're doing the voicemail, personal ads, and you stumble upon that one AOL chat room where like you realized, oh, there's like a kinky kingdom out here. And so you found some people to introduce you to the scene in New York.
This was in Boston, and that's basically what happened. And it was staggering. I just was blown away that there were all these people having fun, doing naughty, outrageous things behind closed doors. And
what kind of naughty, outrageous things are we talking about? Bondage,
inviting people to watch them do that. I mean, there were clubs. I remember going to Man Ray, which was kind of the closest thing to a vault that Boston had. And there were exhibitionists doing their thing. And it was outrageous to me to see these people who were so courageous and so amazing in their willingness to be open and wild, while I was there, kind of with my jaw like open and agape going, wow, I couldn't be that person, but I want to watch that shit.
But what's wild is like, you could be that person. Like in theory, like you could do that too. And in a space like that. And I remember my first sex party, and I was like, I can't do this in person yet. But like we all can. We just all got like when you go to a group sex endeavor and you think, wow, like I could never be one of those people who fucks in front of other people. You know what? I bet you there are people who are doing it who are like, I mean, outside of this play party, I could never fuck in front of people, but like here in this very specific, safe communal space, here I can beat the shit out of my boyfriend,
right?
And then ride his face. It's like so that's
it's my own hangout. I'm not like wired to find that exciting, but I'm wired to watch.
What were like the first thoughts? You were not very sexually explorative in the first place, and not only that, like you're now thrust into a group sex and a party. What are the thoughts going around when you see these things in person for the first time?
I was just transfixed. I couldn't believe that all the stuff that I had kind of read about, because I read a little bit of Story of Owen stuff. I couldn't believe that this was actually happening. I mean, I thought that was just the domain of fiction. I was amazed that there were actually people willing to put their asses on the line, literally and figuratively, for an audience. And through those kind of early explorations, one of the women I came to know was a professional dominatrix. And one of the things that is helpful when you're conducting scenes is sometimes it's useful to have a second pair of hands or a second pair of eyes, or, somebody to discuss what's going on with you.
Or even in public cases, a lookout.
A lookout, yes. So all of a sudden, I kind of offered to assist, and I was invited into those secret spaces. And what happens in professional scenes is a little different than what happens in the public scene, as you can imagine, because these are people who don't want to be public or aren't partnered in a way that permits that kind of fun. And
they're also paying money that they want something very specific.
They're curating an experience for themselves that's very intentional, designed to float their boat in a very specific way. And And the presence of commerce changes the nature of the interaction. Like what happens in a private scene has a different, in a, a compensated private scene is very different than what happens between two lovers.
Yeah.
And that was very cool to observe.
What were you helping her with?
Okay, so let's talk about the branding.
Mm-hmm.
My job was to keep the guy still. And even though he was tied down, let me tell you, brandings look like they fucking hurt. So like, even though he was bound, like the ropes needed to be adjusted. He needed to be held while he squirmed because she was engraving her initials on his perineum, right behind his nuts. And I got to say, that looks like it hurts.
I wrote on my, by the way, I wrote on my page because the way he said nuts, sorry to interrupt. I was just like, I was like, I wrote with a question mark, adorably sheltered. Cause like, even when you wanted to say nuts, you paused. You were like, are the adults around? Can I say it? Nuts.
I can say cock now too. I've learned to say cunt,
my gosh.
Cock, all that shit.
I feel like you've learned how to say and write all those words.
I've used them so much I'm numb. But I'm still a polite Canadian girl at heart. So I'm like, I think I can say nuts with Billy. I don't think he'll be offended.
So what are you thinking when you're holding down this grown-ass man who is being branded? Like, is part of you worried, like, am I going to be in handcuffs at the end of this? Like, what's...
So what I was really thinking at the height of the experience was, oh my God, I hope I don't faint or puke. Because what I hadn't anticipated was a visceral response to the scent of burning flesh. Yeah.
Wow.
That was the thing that threw me. I didn't care that he was in pain. I didn't care. And there was puddles of sweat because it's excruciating. I feel sorry for these Nexium ladies who all got branded because it had to fucking hurt. He was having an endorphin rush, but I'm just trying to make sure I stay upright because part of his safety is reliant on me. So I'm just doing breathing exercises, trying to ignore the smell while my girlfriend is engraving her initials on his perineum. And it was just
behind his nuts.
And it's just an out-of-body experience, just trying to stay upright while this guy is having a moment that he will remember forever, because that brand has got to be with him today, even though this happened, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was a big moment. And up until then, I'd always sort of had this kind of lighthearted crush on her. Like, oh, wow, look at this woman. She's so crazy, violating all these rules. She's a gangster. I mean, it was a sort of a superficial thing. But when I was confronted with the trust and the technique and also the seriousness of what she was doing, it took my appreciation for her and her clients to another level. But it also made me realize that I didn't have the stomach for the really heavy stuff. It was a big moment. And
that's still like your mid-late 20s?
This was, I don't know, maybe it was right around then, yeah.
Right, okay, so we're still in this like experimental, I got my degrees, I got this career, but I need to figure out what makes my parts buzz.
Yeah.
How did you end up responding to doing BDSM yourself? Like, was it for you? Was it not for you? Were there certain things you do like? Like what was that about?
So I'm kind of an experience junkie. I'm drawn to novelty. So one of the great things about kink is that it offers tons of novelty. So I was just like I was like a kid at the buffet, a hungry woman just trying everything and seeing what I liked. And to be honest, I like most of it. And even now, I mean, I think of all that stuff very fondly, but I don't think it had the same resonance for me as it does for serious kinksters.
It didn't like speak to your being.
Yeah, like I think there's some people for whom it's a very primal kind of part of their central identity. And I don't want to say I was a tourist because I was more than that. I mean, obviously, I spent a lot of time in those rooms, but it wasn't as profound an experience for me as it was for some, but I had a hell of a lot of fun. And yeah, like going to the parties, getting dressed up, feeling that heat of adoration, that was pretty sexy. I liked that.
How long did this experimental time period kind of last for?
It was several years that I played around with it, but then I went back and I did my PhD, and I thought, I need to clean up my act. I don't want my sordid past to get in the way of, say, a security clearance or, whatever. And
also, this is also back in a time when like that, not that it can't happen now, but it's not nearly as much. This is back when like if someone found out you were doing some BDSM, like you can lose you can lose a lot of shit for it. Whereas in today, like it'd have to be pretty extreme and irresponsible.
Yeah, you have to be you have to want to be like Army Hammer and asking to carve up some lady and eat her rib. I mean, it has to be extreme.
Yeah, the vor, it's got to be like vor stuff, or it's got to be like hypocritical to your values, aka like a Jerry Falwell Jr., who then we find out is kind of a cuck.
But like in 2000, it was enough that you were like sort of a slut. And
you don't want the word to get out.
Exactly. So I dialed it back. I went back and I did my PhD, and I kind of put that stuff aside. But then it's continued. I don't want to say to haunt me, but the images are so powerful and so seductive that I think about it to this day. And one of the things that I always wondered when I was in the company of my friend was, what would it take for someone like me to do that job? What would have to happen for like the boring professional with big plans, with very specific ambitions to get blown off track and find herself in the sex industry working in the demi-monde?
I mean, I don't know if it's a what has to happen as much as like how big is the check. I think that's probably what it is.
That was sort of what I decided. So that became the genesis of my novel, Edge Play, the idea of this investment banker, Harvard MBA, who's doing all the right things, making all the right decisions, working on Wall Street, and then she sniffs out some sleazy stuff from her boss/work husband, and he fires her. And this is set during the height of the financial crisis, and the only person to kind of offer her a gig is her best friend from university, who has a little art gallery and a secret dungeon in the basement.
Oh, and sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And so what I concluded is that for someone like me to make that decision, you need a career crisis, you need a financial crisis, and you need to be offered a shit ton of money. And so that was the construct of the novel. That's the premise, the kind of the substitute dominatrix. So my gallerista has the opportunity to retrieve a very valuable painting from a latex fetishist in Geneva, but she wants somebody to take over her business while she's gone so that her clients don't scatter.
Sure.
And so it's a fish out of water story. It's basically me in investment banking clothes seeing if she can hack the work and make a go of it for as long as she can stand it, or as long as it takes to get back on her feet as an investment banker. And what was fun is I took what I saw in the dungeon, which was that the men were accomplished, they were serious, they were honorable and ethical. And that's her clients. I mean, I think there's a tendency to think of submissive men as jokes. And that's, I think, short-sighted and stupid. And that is not how they're portrayed in the novel. They're the guys I saw in her dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, even when we talk about, what would get someone into, sex work, whether it's, being a dom or otherwise, the things you listed that would have to happen for you to do it also aren't the reasons why all sex workers need to do it, because they get into it for all sorts of reasons. Some just because they fucking
like the work,
right?
Because they like the work.
Some just like the work. It doesn't have to, I think some people think, oh, sex workers, that's someone who something didn't work out, and for some that's true, and for some it's not. There's just a lot of stigmas about about kink and about sex work, that are really harmful. Are there any stigmas in particular that is there like a particular character in the book who you feel like pushes back against a specific stigma?
So the book is written a bit as a snarky response to 50 Shades. So the woman, she's not an ingenue. She's in her 30s. She's savvy. She makes a choice. You know, she's not seduced into the work. She enters the dungeon with her eyes open. The submissive is the billionaire. And he's a complicated, decent fellow. But let's face it, in 50 Shades, the guy's a stalker. And she's like a clueless young thing who doesn't know any better. And that's not how kink is portrayed in my novel. And it's not how it works in real life. I mean, what I see in the scene now is very advanced levels of discussions of consent. I mean, you participate in BDSM now, it's like getting a master class in affirmative consent. There's like the list, there's like a long list of things that you're willing to do. You go, yes, no, maybe. I mean, where do we do that in our lives outside of kink?
Yeah, like sit down and make a list of like yes, no, and maybe of what you would do for a friend. And then like watch how quickly a lot of those favors friends tend to ask of you go into the maybe and no column. Like, oh, wow, like I really don't want to help them move.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in the no category. We're still friends. That's just my limit. And this friendship is helping you move.
Right. And yet in kink, I mean, these checklists are 100 questions long. Yes to gags, no to anal, maybe to sounds. How about choking? Under the right circumstances. Yeah. I mean, you can be so specific and weird and wonderful. Yeah, I think I want to play like a dog this week. I mean, there's a way to incorporate all sorts of quirky, fun things. And I think the whole issue of consent is one of the things that civilians can take from kink. And it's one of the things that I have my protagonist take from it too. All of a sudden, she's seeing that it's okay to say no to things that she hadn't said no to before. It dawns on her. Like
pulling a tampon out of her, Actually, I think I put that in the no category if someone asked me before they ripped it out my twat. So I'm curious. So when you went back into the PhD program, did you mimic your earlier college self and you kind of zoned in on it, or did you still date? Were you still tapped into the kink scene, or are you still tapped into the kink scene?
I was dating, but I wound up with a civilian. I don't want to call him vanilla because he's anything but plain and boring. But kink isn't what animates my husband, and that was okay.
Do you all incorporate BDSM into your all's lives still though? For you,
we have fun. We enjoy each other's company. I won't get into the specifics of what we do privately, but we have good fun, and it's not always clean.
So are you not sometimes needs a glove? So, would you say that you're still tapped into the, you referenced before, you were like, well, nowadays the scene, and I'm like, well, are you still tapped into the scene? Are your fingers still on the pulse?
I'm still tapped into elements of it. So one of the fun things, when I turned 50, I'm 53, a girlfriend of mine, invited me to join her at like an all women sex party. And that was pretty great. And I was not in the middle of it.
The husband was just like, that's fine. He's like, yeah, go.
Yeah, my husband was amused. He just wanted to hear all about it when I was back. I think a lot of men are generous that way.
What made your friend even ask you in the first place? Like, what about you made her go, oh, yeah, I'm sure Jane's going to be into this?
So she had written about it. It's a thing called Skirt Club. It's for bisexual women.
Oh, Genevieve Lejeune. Yeah, she's been on the show. We know Genevieve.
So my friend Wednesday Martin had written about it. And I said, if you ever need somebody to hold your notepad at one of these events, I hope you'll consider me. And as always, like my pervy voyeuristic side came to the fore. And so for my 50th birthday, Wednesday invited me to be her wing woman at one of these events. I'm sure she was just doing research. And so I was there, and, you know, I gave a beautiful young woman a spanking. I still got it. But that was, to be honest, that was the extent of it. I don't know. We're not poly, so you know, I didn't want to get too enmeshed.
You went to the party with certain limitations in place. It sounds like. So like, you know, outside of you got to go to a skirt club and give a lady a spanking, like, would you say like how are you still tapped into the kink scene?
So I've been to events. I went, you know, I can portray research as something serious when it's very actually low-minded.
But even before the book, I mean, you know, like, you know, before you started writing it, like, were you still tapped into that world, or was it a world that, you know, you were missing a bit, or, you know, what was your relationship to it?
It's an ongoing fascination. I mean, let's face it, it's human drama at its most outrageous and intimate. I mean, people are experiencing yearning, they're experiencing lust, they're experiencing pleasure. I mean, it's theater. How could you not be interested in this shit? Right? So that fascination never left.
Do you consider yourself a civilian, or do you consider yourself kinky?
I consider myself kinky, yeah.
Yeah. So you still enjoy it even if you can't partake in it as much.
And I'm happy to watch. And I think my biggest kink is voyeurism. So that's easy to satisfy. So, like, you know, under the pretense of research, and I went to like Crier Chuchotement, which is the big Paris S&M club. I thought, well, maybe my characters would want to go there. And, you know, I went there and I had a good time, and I used it as like a vocabulary lesson. It's what do you call that? And I learned the French words for strap-on dildo and nipples. They don't teach that in school.
So you before you started writing the book, were you attending fetish parties just to watch, or was that something you kind of had to be separated from for a while when you got married?
You know, it wasn't top of mind. It wasn't like an interest. I had other things going on. But like about 5 years ago, the curiosity came back. And so I indulged it. But let me tell you, writing a book about pervy shit is a great way to give yourself cover. And so I embraced it.
Or sometimes it can put a target on your back, though, when you enter these spaces. I mean, that's kind of part of why I get in. I try to ask about, you know, what your relationship was to it, because some of these communities, whether it be the, you know, BDSM world or certain queer spaces, or even just like the poly sex party scene here in Brooklyn, like. Part of it always wants press coverage, and part of it's very secretive. It's like when you hear that someone's there to write an article or to write a book, I definitely have witnessed people, you know, feel uncomfortable at the prospect of even a description of something they're doing ending up somewhere. So you know, was that something you kept to yourself, or did people know you were there to write a book?
No, I mean, until you've finished a book, you haven't written a book, right? Like,
okay.
So I hadn't finished anything, and I think one of the things I've learned is that women are generally more welcome in spaces like that, maybe, than men are.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of a shorter supply of women interested in men who also want to participate in sex parties and feel safe doing so.
Right.
You know, if you're a woman who wants a dick for any reason, like, just open a window and shout. So you know, you could get it.
So, you know, one of the things I've discovered over the years is if you're a woman in a space like that, nobody asks questions that are too suspicious. They're kind of happy you're there, and maybe I've taken advantage of that. I don't know, but it was eye-opening as a 20-something to realize how embracing these communities could be to somebody who just kind of wanted to watch and see, you know, where she fit in, or if she fit in, and then as a 50-year-old, I just sort of figured those same courtesies would be extended to me, and they were. I mean, I remember going to the Vancouver Fetish Weekend a couple years back. More research. and, just sort of nosing around, dancing with men half my age, maybe younger, having a good time. I mean, am I participating? Am I watching? Am I embracing the moment? Yes, all of the above.
Okay. So BDSM is one of the sub communities explored in the novel, but the other one is like you do have this protagonist who, during the financial crisis, like becomes a professional dominatrix. Seems like first just to help a friend, but it seems like it progresses into a thing
she likes
she's going to do.
She liked.
So besides your friend, IRL, did you talk to other sex workers in preparation and research for the book?
Yes. So she wasn't the only dominatrix I knew during that period of time. I got some bondage lessons from Midori. I mean, I know some of the top women in the field. And then I've kept up with them.
Midori, Wednesday Martin, just name dropping left and right.
I got some cred, and
a very well connected kinkster.
I'm a connected kinkster, and I kept up with a lot of them. I went on a bicycling trip with one. I mean, we're friends, right? We're really friends, and when I had the idea of this book, one of the things I realized is when I looked at how the scene is now, especially the professional scene. I mean, they're all on social media. They're all doing clips and videos and all that stuff. And I thought, oh God, I can't do it in the present day because it's a whole different business than the one I observed. But also I wanted the idea of a quiet, discreet practice that my protagonist could slide in and out of. So the financial crisis was actually a really great period for a number of reasons, including the fact that, Twitter existed, but it wasn't used in the same way it is now. Because there wasn't
Sesta Fosta. We still had Backpage and Craigslist and, places you could put ads for sex work. Whereas, Jesus, even we could talk about the difference in the scene from now to back when you first entered it in the 90s, but even from now to, 12-ish years ago, vastly different. The role the internet has come to play in sex work.
These ladies have personas. They have thousands and thousands of followers on Twitter and Instagram. I mean, the way they use technology is so sophisticated. But I didn't want to get into that.
Because they always have... Well, sex workers always have to adapt to like whatever fucking obstacles and barriers are in their way of trying to make a dollar because, society doesn't really want them to make a dollar the way they want.
I think of it as one of the professions that is the most flexible and the most kind of adaptive there is because, as you notice, there's always some kind of legal obstacle being put in, whether it's in front of billing or in front of the issues of what is legal or even how they can communicate with their followers. I mean, there are all these crackdowns on Twitter and Instagram about sexually related content that hinders their work in meaningful ways. So they're gangsters, they're guerrilla marketers, they're savvy businesswomen. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate just how clever you have to be to excel in this business.
Back in 2010, I'm shopping for happy ending massages on Craigslist, right? Yeah, I'm in my college NYU days. I'm sure I've told the story before, but it's like I realized the moment I realized sex workers are fucking brilliant was like a little over 10 years ago because I saw an ad. Now, the ad wasn't for me necessarily because I was looking for real massage because when I want a happy ending massage, I'm not there for someone hot to jerk me off. I'm there for someone to give me a massage. But in this ad I see, there's it's an escort who is offering full service and blowjobs. But the way she says it is she says, just let me know if you want me to sing Billy Joel or Frank Sinatra. What? That I'm a junior in college, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do grad school, but if I do go to grad school, I want to write about the communication style of sex workers because that's brilliant. It took me a while to figure it out, and when I did, I was like, it's like, and again, it's because it's out of necessity. You have to, if you have to dodge police and violence and stigma and all this jazz and community standards and all that, then like you get fucking crafty. Yeah. That's wild. What's something that is so vastly besides what you've you've mentioned already about like having these online personas and it being more directly engaged with fans. What's one of the biggest differences between now and when you were in the fetish scene? And you can also throw in what changed, but yeah, let's just stick with that. What's different between the fetish scene now today and the fetish scene that you came into in the 90s?
The most obvious difference is the technology. And I'm not talking like the social media technology. I'm talking about like the physical technology that's present in a well-equipped dungeon. So if you go into like any serious dungeon these days, they're going to have like a vacuum bed and all sorts of crazy electricals, and just, I'm an engineer, so that's like where my eyes go. I'm like, oh my God, how do these ladies do it? I mean, I have a PhD in engineering, and that shit scares me. I mean, they've got rebreathing apparatuses. It's wild. And then also like the medical stuff they do. I mean, they're doing suturing. I mean, branding is like medical light in terms of technique.
Needles.
Not in terms of, yeah, like it's all
I saw a guy inject his balls with saline at a play party, so his balls blew up to like this big.
Right. I mean,
like they're using what? And we had a real doctor there to watch, and like, there was the second floor of the party was like, and there is a doctor there in case something goes wrong.
So like,
just don't tell anyone because he'll lose his license.
I dated a doctor like that, and
a kinky doctor,
and one of his great thrills was teaching sterile technique to dominatrixes. That was one of the things. He would do seminars at some of these conventions where he would basically give them the skills of a scrub nurse, of a surgical scrub nurse, like how to prep the area. And this was like something that really floated his boat. And the level of professional education, if you will, has really been amazing. I mean, their conferences, their conventions, the ladies today know what's what. In the 90s, we were all just sort of, just hoping we didn't hurt one another. I mean, it was all pretty, it was pretty loosey goosey, fun. But, I think one of the reasons that it was not that hard for me to put it aside, because there were moments in retrospect where I think, holy shit, somebody could have gotten hurt. And, and sometimes that might've been me, but sometimes it might've been my counterpart, and neither option particularly thrills me.
And what even inspired you to write a book about kink in the first? Like, why were you like, oh, this is what I need to write?
It was a way of going back to that period where I had a lot of fun, and not being reckless or anything. Writing about it is safe, and I've always wondered if I had a novel in me, and I like what. The sort of the themes that emerge out of S&M. I mean, we're talking about consent. We're talking about control. We're talking about power. We're talking about gender in ways that are really profound. I mean, what's a dominatrix and a submissive man? I mean, they're playing with gender scripts and fucking with them in ways that are fun. And so it's a really rich territory. I mean, don't you think it's like sort of perfect for novels, except for the fact that it's explicit, so it was hard to get published?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, marketing hurdles with books like that. Otherwise, they're very rich with themes and stuff. People just seem scared to to publish.
I got some really classy rejections before I found my publisher.
Before you had the idea to actually write this book, it sounds like you might have been missing the fetish scene at all.
I think so, yeah.
Or a little bit. Were those conversations you had to kind of have with the husband to be like, hi, like I'm missing this, and maybe it doesn't end with an approval, but like within your marriage, like if you feel like you're missing something in that regard, you don't have to be super specific about the act itself. Yeah. But is that something you go and say like, I'm missing this, and a conversation takes place? And if so, how does that conversation go down?
My husband is a special guy. I think one of the things that brought us together is he's just really curious about sexuality himself. And so our conversations are pretty wide ranging. I don't think there was ever anything quite so explicit as, "Hey, honey, I'm really missing this bondage shit. So I'm going to be writing about it." I just started writing about it, and I think.
Well, I mean, even before there was never like a, "Hey, I miss going to these parties and watching all this stuff. Would you be okay if I went?"
He's asked, actually. He knows about my fun days in my 20s.
He's like, "Hey, you miss it? You want to go? I'll take you.
Yeah.
I'll buy the VIP ticket, even though it doesn't really get me that much extra. I'll buy the VIP tickets for us."
Yeah. He was pretty excited when I announced I was going to the skirt club thing. Sure. I think he wishes I took more initiative of that sort. And maybe now he wishes I took less. But there was never any hesitation, or he never presented an obstacle for any of the crazy ideas I had.
So if there's anything you want to go do, it sounds like y'all two have a pretty open thing where you can go and say, "Hey, can we do this?" And he's like going to be game for it, or maybe says no. But it sounds like you two could go to each other with a sexual pitch.
Yeah. So like when I went to Crier Chuchotement, it was actually he was on a business trip in Europe, and I tagged along, and I had an evening to myself. And so I went on FetLife just to see what was going on in Paris, as one does. And I discovered that it was.
But that's what I'm trying to get at. It's like the fact that you had a FetLife profile, or were you? I don't know if you were already researching the book, but like, it's like, oh, I have this FetLife profile. Like there are relationships like they would not be comfortable, even if there's no intention of doing anything with anyone at all. Some people wouldn't be comfortable with you even having that FetLife profile.
Yeah, no, that's never been an issue, and mostly I there's a lot of mutual respect and understanding. We're not assholes. So it was never an issue, but it was sort of funny. So I had this free evening in Paris. My husband was in Berlin that night, and I discovered at the last minute that this evening was going down. So on the spur of the moment, I just thought, I'm going to go to this S&M club by myself. I mean, it was the whole thing. What am I going to wear? I didn't really have any fetish wear, so I just had a little black dress. So I made the best of it. I went. And when I left, because it was in a basement, so it was in a very stone-walled basement. So like my cell phone didn't get his calls, and there was like a snowstorm. So he had called me a few times to let me know that his flight had been delayed. And so I get out after my couple hours in this S&M club, and I discovered, oh my God, my husband was unable to reach me because I was in this pit, this S&M club. So I immediately called him back, left a message. "Honey, you're not going to believe this, but I was at Crier Chuchotement in Paris." I mean, it was very casual. And, I didn't think twice about having made the decision at the last minute. I didn't really think twice about telling him that I had gone. I don't know. I think he's a very special man, and I think he realizes he's married to kind of a kooky lady. So he cuts me some slack.
A kooky, special, kinky lady. Jane, thanks so much for chatting with us. That was very fun. I had a very good time. Would you want to tell people about where they can find you, where they can find your book, Edge Play?
Yeah, it would be my pleasure. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram, same handle, at Jane E. Boon, and Boon is spelled Boon. My website is janeboon.com. And the easiest place to get my book is on Amazon. And although I hate getting Jeff Bezos any richer, the guy does have an HGH habit he has to support, and a hot new girlfriend. So a little extra dough his way is probably not so bad. And the book is called Edge Play, and I describe it as 50 Shades of Grey meets The Big Short by way of Billions. But if you ever read Too Big to Fail and thought, man, I wish this book had more sex in it, this is the book for you.
Do you when you were plugging Amazon, by the way, I don't have another option, so that's easiest?
It's the easiest. It's carried in a few bookstores, but I don't know where.
Sure. Well, so something, a site I like, and this is how I've been linking to people's books lately in the show notes, but there's like this, and I think there's others like it, but bookshop.org.
Yes, that's an excellent
is they will
choice.
find you. Yeah, I now link people. If you go to my show notes and there's like a book we're plugging, that's usually what I'm linking to because I think it finds the book at a local bookstore
Excellent
for
choice.
you. So fuck you, Bezos.
You are doing
if
God's work, Billy.
Well, anything I can do to help. Jane, this was very fun. Thanks for chatting with us. And why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Well, thank you so much, Billy. And I hope everybody has a fantastic time by themselves or with company, because I am all in for pleasure.
I don't know. If your dominatrix friend asked you to help assist, would you? You gotta love that adventurous spirit that Jane clearly has. She really is a hey, I'll try it all twice kind of gal. And I dig that. You gotta love that about a person. So I would love to know what you thought about this week's episode. What'd you think about Jane? Do you have your own story from the AOL chat rooms? Have you read Edgeplay yourself and you want to give me a review? Shoot me an email at manwhorepod@gmail.com. Want to discuss the episode with your fellow fan whores? Well, then head on over to the Champagne Room, our free Discord server where we'll have a dedicated channel to episode 369. You can ask each other all about your favorite BDSM implements. How about that? By the way, the Discord server is like fucking popping. There are so many different conversations going kind of all at the same time in their own separate channels. I mean, Jesus, today it's blowing up where we are sharing our favorite porn films, but not just like what they were, but like why? Like what was it? Was it the lighting? Was it the soundtrack? Yeah, go find out for yourself. Head on over to manwhorepod.com/Discord and get chatting for free today. Of course, you should be following me on all the socials. I'm at @TheBillyPresida on Twitter. I am no longer shadow banned on Instagram at BillyIsPresida. And you can always go smash that like button on the Man Whore Podcast Facebook fan page, which is also where you can go to get all your Man Whore merch. And have you wanted to talk to me using a little bit more of a sensual voice? Have you wanted to maybe like, I don't know, see what I look like with my clothes off? Have you ever wanted to get the dirtier look, a little more of a firsthand perspective of the Man Whore Podcast? Well, then you need to go check out my free OnlyFans. Head on over to onlyfans.com/callmebilly. All the links are in the show notes of this. That's how it usually rolls about. I'm probably going to exit this and head back into a clubhouse room because I kind of can't get enough of it. I miss people. I miss all you whores. I can't wait for some regional Man Whore cons. Oh, I can't wait. Please get vaccinated if you're allowed to. Love you all. Hold the line with those diamond hands. And stay slutty. HotMovies.com has long been an ethical and affordable place to #pay for some of your porn. Now with Hot Movies Select, customers gain access to unlimited viewings of tens of thousands of additional films from all their favorite studios for the low price of $24.95. Visit hotmovies.com, click Select Unlimited, and use promo code MANWHORE at checkout so they know who sent you.